ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bang, bang. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bang, bang. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bang, bang. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bang, bang.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome back. Video number 2 for our last video set and our last lesson of Unit 1 on operations with integers. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be evaluating expressions, and of course, you need to use the order of operations to evaluate expressions. Now, I know you've taken notes on order of operations before. I think in our first video set, it's okay. We're going to do it again because it's important for you to understand. We're not doing PEMDAs anymore. That P is going away. We're putting on a G. We need that G because now we're talking grouping symbols. And when it comes to grouping symbols, let's talk about a few of those. You know parentheses because you did parentheses in the beginning. Parentheses are a very common form of grouping symbol. But we also have the radical sign. We also have these fraction bars. When you have a fraction, that fraction bar is a grouping symbol. And of course, we just learned recently the absolute value bar. So those are the most common ones we're going to see right now. There are many others, and we will learn them as we go and talk about them when we get there. Of course, real quickly, then we go exponents, and after exponents, we do multiplication and division, whatever comes first from left to right. We got to remember, they are interchangeable. Whichever one we see in order from left to right is what we do first. And the same with the addition and the subtraction, whatever comes first from left to right. So when we're looking at an expression and we have to evaluate an expression, we always need to follow GEMDAs. GEMDAs from now and forward. So ladies and gentlemen, let's do a few of those. Evaluating an expression. We're going to evaluate an expression when A is negative 18 and B is negative 6. So here's the expression. It's an algebraic expression because it is filled with variables. If it has one variable in it, it's an algebraic expression. Versus numeric expression, if I have 2 plus 3, well, that's a numeric expression. It's an expression because it doesn't have an equal sign in it. And when we evaluate it, we would say, well, that is 5. So we can evaluate that numeric expression without an equal sign in it. All right, so now we have to take, and what we do is I call it just plug and chug. So we got to plug in the numbers that are represented by these variables, and then we're going to chug out the answer by doing the math. So in this particular case, we have A divided by B, so I'm going to say that A is negative 18, and we're going to divide that by B, which is negative 6. Now I use these parentheses. Does that mean that that is a grouping symbol and I have to do negative 18 first? No, I'm putting the parentheses around that just so I can make sure I absolutely understand that that 18 is negative, and I am dividing by a negative 6 so I don't get confused with that negative and that division sign at the same time. And of course, we just learned that when we're dividing, we take a look at the signs, and the signs are the same. So a negative divided by a negative is positive, and 18 divided by 6. Wow, our most common answer of this video set is 3. Moving right along, evaluate another expression with the same values of A being negative 18 and B negative 6. So I have A plus 6 divided by 3. So once again, I am going to plug in the numbers. We only need to plug in the 1. So I've got negative 18 plus 6 all divided by 3. Now I can evaluate it using the order of operations, and I can see right here I have a division bar. That division is a grouping symbol, meaning that I need to do the math in the numerator first. So negative 18 plus 6, I'm adding. The signs are different, so I need to subtract. 18 minus 6, that is 12. And of course the 18 is greater than the 6, so the absolute value of negative 18 would be greater than the absolute value of 6, which means my answer is negative 12, and I'm still dividing by 3. And now I'm dividing, and I have opposite or different signs, so I know my answer is negative, and then of course 12 divided by 3 is 4. kind of not slowed down, so please make sure that after each slide you stop the video so you can write down your notes before moving on. So here we go. Number 9, evaluating this expression. Again, the same values for a and b. And in number 9, we have b squared divided by a plus 4. So let's plug in the numbers. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go b squared. Now, since algebraically it says b is squared, I've got to write this correctly and say -6 squared and put that -6 in parentheses. Because if I wrote it like this, the answer would have been different. And we don't want that. It's saying the entire value of b is being squared. So we have to write it correctly. So -6 squared, all divided by a, which is -18, and then we're going to add to that 4. Following order of operations, again, we have our fraction bar, which is a grouping symbol, so I have to do the -6 squared. Well, -6 times -6 is going to be positive 36. And I'm dividing that by a -18, and then I'm adding 4. And a positive 36 divided by a -18, dividing different signs, my answer will be negative. So I'm going to get -2 plus 4. Now I'm adding opposite signs, subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2. The 4 is bigger, so the answer is positive 2. I went through that kind of fast, so you might want to write it down. And if you have to, back it up now that you've written it down, and then just watch it again real fast. Alrighty, here we go. Our real life application, it says the morning high tide at a beach is 57 inches. 6 hours later, the afternoon low tide is 12 inches. What is the mean hourly change in the height? So of course, there's some things we want to highlight as we read it a second time. It says the morning high tide at the beach is 57 inches. 6 hours later, the afternoon high tide is 12 inches. What is the mean hourly change in the height? So the question, the mean hourly change in the height. And this word mean is important. That's the average. That is the average. And so how do we find average? We add up the number of items. We add them all up. And then we take that total and we divide it by the number of items. And that will give us the mean of the answer of the items. So we have to understand that to do this, we have to find the difference between the high and the low tide. Because we know that between over 6 hour time, we've got the high of 57 and the low of 12. So I'm going to find the difference, and I'm going to go 57 minus 12, and I'm going to divide that by 6. And 57 minus 12 is what? That's right, 45. Divided by 6, 45 divided by 6 is going to give us 7.5. So that would be 7.5 inches per hour is the mean average change in the height of the tide. So that means that the tide was up at 57 inches. After the first hour, it's going to be down to 49.5 inches because it's the mean hourly change. That doesn't mean that's exactly how it went. It just says that this is the average. So, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our last quick write. Our video notes for this unit is over. You have one thing to do by evaluating that expression. And then, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, of course, I always want you have any questions, please write them down. Go ahead and mark your text. You can highlight whatever you need to do so that you can come to class and say, Mr. Ross, I really need you to explain this again. Or I was confused when you did this one on example number 6. Whatever it is, you can come into class and ask. Remember, 45 minutes max. Be accountable for what you're doing, autographing your work with excellence. Always use aggressiveness and urgency. That means using your time wisely. Ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure, always a pleasure. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Have a great night.